Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is sponsored by the Which Side Media Collective store. You should totally go there and check out all of our prisoner support stuff that we have. Some of the proceeds go to prisoner support, and the rest go to pretty much making this stuff. So check it out.
Everything that we have is handmade by ourselves, and we don't get paid any money. So pretty much, like Jordan said, it goes directly to paying for the stuff and then helps the collective and prisoners. So help everyone out. Get some cool prisoner support swag.
WhичSideCollective.org.
This is episode 160.
Yeah, we talked with Krow. Krow actually recently just got out of prison.
Yeah, she was serving time for some activities related towards mining protests. So it was a really fun conversation. Stick around for that. So Jordan, what news and events do we have going on?
Well, there is a protest on Friday, December 4th at the offices of Skanska, USA in Seattle, Washington. So check that out and check out all the other No New Animal Lab demonstrations that are going on.
I still can't pronounce that name. Fuck them.
It's a dumb name.
This week's listener shoutout is brought to you by
Which Side member? The usual John Pawson.
What? Kia ora koutou to everyone in the Which Side Media Collective. Kia ora kōrua, Jordan and Jeremy. I'd like to shout out all the conspiracy theorist motherfuckers, all the big pharma anti-GMO, pro-organic, as if anything not organic contains the very essence of evil motherfuckers. Y'all motherfuckers provide substantial comic relief every single day. Ngā mihi to everyone for their hard work on the podcast. Keep it gangster. I'm going to go make some coffee and fold clean washing while I listen to Michael Jackson like any good anarchist would. Peace.
I love John. If you'd like to have a listener shout out, just go over to whichsidepodcast.com, click on the donate tab, and you can record your own listener shout out, just like John did. For this week's Slingshot, December 4th, 1969, Black Panther Fred Hampton was killed in his bed by the Chicago police.
That's a really sad story if anyone hasn't read it.
This week, so many sad things happened. If you love like these little tidbits of history, go pick up a Slingshot Personal Organizer. You can learn about all of them.
It's the perfect time to get your next one, so go get one now.
You can get one at a local info shop or an online info shop like AK Press. I sincerely hope you enjoy this episode. So how's your day going so far?
Good. Some friends of mine, they just built a yurt. Well, not just, like a year ago, but I was like out of the loop for that. And they had a Friendsgiving thing last night, so I was just helping them clean up. And I had a lot of weird shit buried on their land, so I was digging stuff up today. So it's been a good and goofy day.
Like what kind of stuff?
Just like some food stores. Like I had some like bear fat and some maple syrup and applesauce and just some like tools and things. Yeah, I don't know. We just buried it before I went to serve my sentence, and I came back and dug up most of it. But we're kind of on the borderline of the taiga, so it's getting really cold, and I should have done it sooner. It was really hard.
Is the ground starting
to freeze? It is. There's been some like unseasonably warm weather up here. I mean, like we're right on the lake, you know, so you can see like I can see like Superior from me, like right now, like a quarter mile away. So it's a little warmer in general where we're at this time of year, but it's still, the fact that there isn't a foot or more of like snow on the ground right now is kind of a cause for concern. Like, I know it's El Nino, but it's not right, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we're definitely seeing the effects of anthropocentric climate disruption, anthropogenic climate disruption. Okay.
Well, we were kind of thinking, would you be okay talking about your case a little bit?
Yeah, I'm confused. Are we recording right now?
Yeah, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, this is okay. I didn't know we started. Wow, I'm just being off the charts here. Okay, yep, I'm ready. I'm all over the place. I'll get more focused. I didn't realize we had actually started. I should have figured that.
No worries at all. Yeah, so if you'd like, could you talk about your case a little bit so our listeners who aren't so familiar?
Yep, I'll try to talk about it as best I can and as much as I can. Long story short, but I was charged with felony robbery, use of force, and then prior to a crime, criminal property damage in relation to exploratory drilling activity that was happening in the Penokee Hills, iron/Gogebic range of northern Wisconsin, north central. And we generally refer to our bioregion as the Northwest Great Lakes bioregion, and the sub-region is the Penokee Hills. And the original word for that is Kujawa, which is an Ojibwe word for iron, is how I understand it and have been told. So, my charges are related to that. I was living at the Lakudere Band of Ojibwe Harvest Camp. I was invited to live there to do just resistance work, resisting by existing in that bioregion, because it's also in the ceded territory of the Ojibwe people in the late 1800s. Just when Chief Buffalo, that's how I understand it, to seeing how many of the indigenous peoples of the Anishinaabe had been extirpated and been run off their land, getting sick of warring, so they were kind of coerced into signing this land over to the state, but it was still meant to be in perpetuity for indigenous people up here, the Ojibwe, to hunt, fish, and gather on. So it's not uncommon to see different camps for different gathering activities interspersed and dispersed throughout this bioregion. So at Harvest Camp, they're in the way, the camp itself was built where one of the parking lots and processing facilities for overburden rock, or just, I think that's one way I heard it, and who knows if it would have been for overburden, for the proposed Penokee mine, which would have been 22 miles long, 4.5 miles wide, and about 1,500 feet deep at its deepest point. So the camp was situated in part of the master plan for that proposal. And in the meantime, people were just people living there would field visitors and let people stay there, help show them how to make wigwams, and part of the Ojibwe impetus for doing that was cultural revival, and also just creating a space within the forest so that people could see the value of it and the interconnectedness that we can have with it outside of economic gain, even though there is things you could economically gain if you want out of it, doing a massive sugar bush. They have so many sugar maples up there. So I was living at this camp as a comrade to Ojibwe indigenous people that had invited us to be there. And long story short, at the onset of that camp, there's a lot of beautiful things happening and a lot of really good intentions, but there was a massive communication breakdown and methods and tactics of resistance between different groups of people there. And I say comrade to indigenous people, I have mixed feelings about the word ally. I don't think it's inherently bad, but I feel in that context, from my experience, it seems to connotate people that stand on the sidelines you're doing a really good job, indigenous frontline community, we're going to support you. And it's really, and then it's ambiguous as to how they're actually going to do that or if they will do anything. So I don't want to fall into that category or use that word in that context. I'm kind of going off on a tangent. So as a comrade that is not indigenous living in that area and trying to have good communication between all of us and figure out what when or if we would react if something would happen there wasn't the most detailed conversation surrounding that should have taken place before, say, like exploratory drilling happening that led to me being charged, which later led to me being incarcerated. Yeah. So kind of a knee-jerk reaction in terms of like what led to my charges and being arrested. There was just, for a couple of years at that point, such a massive lack of communication between the front company, Go Get It Taconite, that's a subsidiary of Klein Corporation that does a lot of coal mining in the Appalachia area. And they kind of just, same story, different bioregion, different time. We're taking back roads and just trying to be as sneaky as possible to start the onset of this mining process. And kind of the idea everyone had in this community that we're on the same page with is like once they started doing that, they had their foot in the door and no one wanted to let them get their foot in the door. So, yeah, when people woke up to the sounds of machinery and things happening that, number one, people hoped wouldn't be happening, and number two, at that point, thought couldn't be happening, there was a discrepancy even in what people thought kind of permits the company had at the time. So there was a lot of feelings, thoughts, and ideas that they were, quote unquote, supposedly allowed to be doing what they were doing anyway. And it later came out that maybe they got a fine or two for not having one storm permit, but it didn't matter. A lot of companies do that. They'll start work on a project, or like they'll knowingly not apply to do, like, have one sort of like storm wastewater permit, or they won't follow all the rules in terms of like how wide the roads can be and like what kind of machinery they can have up there. And they'll just take the fine and keep doing what they're doing because they have money to do that, and it's easier for them to do that than wait. So that created this big conflict, and people tried to get in the way of what they were doing, and it ended up stopping some of the exploratory drilling for a couple days. It wasn't permanent. They had to get like a new drill bit and stuff for some of their machinery, so it did incur a lot of like debt from the company, but there was massive resentment from them, and they were scared to some degree, otherwise they wouldn't have reacted the way that they did. And they were trying to get as many people, as many charges as possible, as quickly as possible. And some of my getting into the kind of trouble that I did, I not so much later found out was due to some people who I thought were the comrades at the time colluding with the police in communications that I definitely did not consent to. So it's a roundabout way of saying there is, I was going to say inadvertent, but I guess that's more direct snitchery going on, just different ideas of like how I went and who communicates with quote unquote authority figures like police. And yeah, I think it's a classic case of like people's like ego getting in the way, like, oh, I can talk to cops, so I know how to get out of this. And maybe age difference, not to be ageist, but just like in terms of like awareness in this rural area that we're living in, or wilderness area in a lot of places, lack of exposure and experience with like different kinds of authorities, like in the situation like this where there's lots of money being put into a massive potential industrial project, there's a lot of political interest and money involved, so reactions to resistance are going to be a little heavier. I think people didn't take that into account. I'm not trying to make excuses for them. It's a lot to process when you think you have certain community connections and it turns out that maybe what people thought they were doing was good, or they've really done a good job of playing off like they're more radical than they are, end up leading to your demise. So yeah, I'm working through a lot of resentment issues with that, to be honest, and because that's basically what led majorly to me, like, getting the charges that I did, and then someone finding some camera up on the ridge and posting a video to the internet. It was just complete. It's not just like, oh, that's in bad taste. It's just completely idiotic. I don't know who would ever think that's a good idea, and whoever would think to film something like that in the first place, regardless of like what people think or saw in that video. I think the idea of whoever was on the ridge that day and like running around trying to make a deal, trying to like stop something, anything that was happening with the exploratory drilling. It was just the idea to like scare and stall as much as possible and say things that would like freak them out, like, oh, this is being videotaped, even though I think most people probably thought that wasn't happening, including myself. So I feel like I've been talking straight here for a long time and maybe it's going in several different directions too quickly. So I guess I want to give some space to clarify if people have questions or maybe refocus what you were trying to get at with like, oh, what happened with your case? Because I'm kind of getting into a lot of details really quickly.
Yeah. So what were you actually charged with that led to your incarceration?
Yep, that's what I was trying to kick that off with, but just to remind people, yeah, it was, I got charged with felony robbery with use of force for taking supposedly the camera phone from Stacy, was the private geologist contracted to do some work and oversee exploratory drilling in that instance. So that was the incident with me and her. And then party to a crime, criminal property damage to mining equipment and movable property. So it was like movable property, but it was like in reference to mining equipment.
Yeah.
So the last 3 months of my sentence were for party to a crime and being quote unquote non-cooperative with authorities about, just being non-cooperative.
So you said you had 3 extra charges because you were uncooperative?
Just uncooperative, like they were like, yes, this is party to a crime, criminal property damage. You were in the presence of other people doing things.
Yeah.
And, naturally they want to try and figure out who all they think those people are. And I have no respect for authorities in that sense and have no intention to ever collude with them in that sense or be cooperative.
One of the things that you were talking about was kind of a lack of basic security culture. Is that kind of like how you'd characterize it?
Yeah, I was just trying to like be more accessible with my language. So like depending on who and when people will be listening to this. But that's exactly what it is. Just like baseline agreement about how to be safe and how to keep your community safe and how to like resist in a way that you think is effective at the same time. Those are things like that should never be based on assumption. And I think as an individual, I personally thought there wasn't that much assumptions involved between certain groups of people, and there was. So it's good to know what being wrong looks like and feels like so we can make it not happen again. But I think a big part of that too is I think I was just wearing too many hats, just like doing too many different kinds of resistance, and that led to my demise. Like I was really visible in the community, and there's nothing wrong with that. But because I've been charged for it and because it's happened, otherwise I wouldn't even be talking about it like this. But if there's going to be something positive that comes out of this experience, it's like I want people to be as effective in their resistance as possible and like not go to jail or prison ever, because that's just a waste. So that's why I guess I'm talking about it like this. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, what kind of like real basic lessons can be learned out of this failure of security culture? Like I don't know if you want to go into details of necessarily what the failures were of the security culture, or just talk more in generalities.
Yeah, I don't know. Trust is a big issue. The biggest thing is it seems obvious, but you got to just really, really know who you're working with and organizing with and like what your values are, like on a deep level. I guess as an individual, I value trust, but maybe was trusting too quickly. But I feel like you've known people for years, you tend to like start making assumptions about your relationships. And yeah, I guess just being alert of like people's patterns and like what your relationships are with people and like what you actually know about them, and just rechecking in on that with yourself and those people is like a really basic, obvious and important thing to do. I feel like I wasn't doing enough of that. Mm-hmm. And part of it in this like more rural and wilderness communities up here, I've noticed just in my personal experience, not the stereotype, but just from my experience living up here, between like younger demographics of people, like 30 and under, and then like somewhat older, like 30, 35 and older than that, the levels of trust that people in these smaller rural or wilderness communities have with their authority figures, like the county sheriff or people in the DNR or Gliffwick, is a little bit disconcerting to me at times because it's so small and because everyone knows each other in that way. They think there's this false sense of security, like, oh, no matter what, even if we're on the job, we're looking out for each other. And that's something I've never agreed with, but I feel like without, at the risk of like sounding snotty and elitist because I don't want to be, it just happens sometimes. I think people think they have some kind of privileged relationships with authority figures in smaller communities. And at the end of the day, people need to know that like those people are doing their jobs, and like regardless of whether or not they like your apple pie or your personality, they're gonna put you behind bars or do what they have to do. It doesn't matter if you know like the county sheriff and they've come to your fish fry to like raise money for your community well, like they don't care. They're the sheriff. They're gonna like arrest you. They're going to come check out your camp. They're going to do all those things. And, like, maybe they'll give you some leeway once in a while, but they're still authority figures. And I think that sounds really obvious to some people, but I feel like I'm just trying to drive home in smaller communities. I think people think it's different, and it is on some level. Like, living in the North Woods of Wisconsin is not the same as living in downtown Milwaukee or Madison, obviously, but, like, people take that for granted. Mm-hmm. And I know I did. I was too trusting of other people being trusting of those people and thought that, like, we still had an understanding of how we were going to interact with people with this assumed authority, like sheriffs and cops and DNR. And, yeah, too many assumptions are made around that. And we were not on the same page, particularly between age demographics of, like, some elders and then, like, non-elders.
You know, one of the things that you mentioned was that like sometimes people have that feeling of, oh, I can handle talking to a cop, I can handle this, and not really knowing it. And I know in my early activist days, I fell victim to that same thing. And you learn lessons the really fucking hard way sometimes.
Yeah, totally. I bet. Once again, maybe it's obvious to some people, but that's great if it is. Let's just drive it home. You're never going to talk your way out of a legal situation with a cop. Doesn't matter how funny you are, how suave you are, how smart you are. It's awkward a lot of the time, but it's best just to fucking say nothing. Mm-hmm. Don't say anything. Just sit there. That's what you need to do. Yeah. Give them your idea if you want to make it fast, but just don't talk. There shouldn't be any talking. Or if you want to say, am I free? Am I detained or am I free to go? Like, that's fine. Whatever. It's pretty standard, pretty basic, but aside from I want to see my lawyer or am I detained or free to go, I don't think there should be any dialogue. I'm not saying ever, but like in a situation where you're like being apprehended, there's potentially a situation, like no talking. It's weird, but that's what needs to happen, just no dialogue. That's why they say everything you say can and will be used against you. Like it will, every little thing. So just people need to shut up.
It does, and it will be used against you.
I just hear it all the time, even from like little things. I just resolved this, like from train hopping with friends. We were with another friend that ended up getting caught by like yard bulls back in the day, and we had gotten away, and they were just, I don't even know what they were talking about, but they thought it was a good moment to experiment with radical honesty with the rail yard workers, and they're like, oh yeah, I think we're at a good same page, least common denominator right now. And they wouldn't leave, and they're like shouting at us from a distance to come over. And I'm like, wow, this is just truly idiotic. And it seemed pretty chill from there. They're like offering us bottles of water. They're like, oh, you must be like thirsty and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wow, this is weird. And then we all just had this overwhelming feeling like we need to leave right now. So we just kind of cut it short and started walking away. And then instantly, 5 cop cars. I got no more than a block or two down the road, and we all got collectively like $1,700 worth of tickets, just from one of our friends, not even admitting to even being on the train, but admitting that we were like within so many feet of the rail yard. And I think some of them got it dropped, but then like, usually I'm pretty good at saying nothing, but I think I just said something really sassy to the police because I was just like not in the mood. It had nothing to do with anything that allegedly happened. And I got some other, this is just like a simple example. Not trying to brag about it. It's just, it probably happens to a lot of people. There's got another charge added, like, well, disorderly conduct, because he said, like, one snotty thing, like, oh, what a convenient night to be arrested in a snowstorm, anything. It's just, none of that shit's going to help you. I know sometimes you want to do it, or maybe you think it's funny, or you're trying to prove something to yourself or other people that you're with, but it's just going to make your situation worse. So,
I've even heard situations where like,
what?
I've even heard situations where you answer a couple questions like your name, other things, and then when they start getting into the tough questions, if you remain silent, then they'll use that against you. They'll be like, well, they talked about this, but then they started to be silent about these other things, and it's just better to just not say anything. Because
exactly. So like, even if it seems like nonchalant and just like a chatty conversation, the moment you say anything and then you just stop talking, it's automatically just weird, like way weirder for them, and they note that. They make a note of it. You might as well just kick it off with being awkward as possible and not talk at all.
Yep.
Yeah. I just like, it's easier said than done, because sometimes you're in that situation and it's just like so weird, and it seems like the silence lasts forever, but like it doesn't matter. You gotta roll with it. Regardless of like what they say or do, just don't talk. Yeah.
So did you want to talk a little bit more about the mine and the Penokee Defenders?
Sure. Yeah, I guess Penokee Defenders just became, well, it was initially started out as like an information repository for developmental processes surrounding the proposed mine, and then actions surrounding resisting that space and rewilding that space. And long story short, there needs to be like more updates to it. They got that website now. I think it's been a little, not totally defunct, but close to it for far too long. But it's supposed to keep people in the loop from like a more radical perspective, and like some of the news articles obviously are just like objective information. But like, yeah, a way that wasn't mainstream media, that was coming from whoever wanted to help out with it from this bioregion to add information, and then eventually there's stuff about following the legal things on there. But, yeah, there's definitely been less organizing the last couple of months from how I understand it, and I'm experiencing it now. I've only been out of jail for like 3 weeks because Gogevik Taconite is quote-unquote officially pulled out of the project and is not actively pursuing their proposal or any exploratory drilling within the Penokee Range right now, as of this last February, I think February 28th, 2015. But there still is interest in that low-grade taconite iron ore mineral in our bioregion, because it's one of the largest deposits of said iron left in North America, but it's not particularly easy to get to, or like I said, high grade. So there's all these rumors right now of other companies being potentially interested, and the point, mining Krow from back in the day, 1800s, still owns it, and is potentially interested in leasing it to others, but it seems like nothing is currently active with that. The harvest camp is finally not, the LCO, the Kudu Ojibwe Harvest Camp, is officially not operating and active in the Penokee Hills as of a couple months ago now, which is a little depressing to me. So people have still been trying to go out there and like utilize that space, because that's what it was. It was a camp that held space, that created energy, that created this like consistent persistence of resistance in the hills, like regardless of it was like a snowshoe or a pancake breakfast, there's like a presence, there's things happening there. And now there's not so much. It's become a popular locale where like people come to visit and do things there. Like people are like, oh, there's a lot of leeks here, there's a lot of maple syrup to get. So like I feel like there's been a lot of positive connections with like how to use that space that's not a mine from all different walks of life of folks in this area, not from this area. So that's cool. People see a value in protecting it on a wider spectrum, maybe more than they did before. So that's protection and resistance, and like forest security in itself. Like people being a part of the land ethic. That's kind of like in my personal mind where I'm pumped to put more of my energy, just general like protection of public lands, and like with the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife not conservation. I should know that. I'm embarrassed. I'll admit I need to relook up what the C is for. We'll come up with it. It's like the Band of Ojibwe's up here version of the DNR, but to repeat what I said before, they include humans in the land ethics. So, like, they don't just go to a wooded place, a quote-unquote wilderness place to, like, visit it. They're, like, an active part of that landscape. Like, they're harvesting. They're trying to create this, like, reciprocal relationship where, you know, like, they take some things and then they'll leave an offering, or they'll notice that maybe from, like, the Department of Transportation or an old logging road being used too much, so, like, some of these more, quote-unquote, not native or naturalized plants are, like, creeping into, like, a more delicate forest ecosystem and just kind of, like, picking them out and maybe using them if they can. Just not managing the forest so much like the Department of Natural Resources does. That's really patriarchal, and I'm not pumped about it. And there are a lot of people up here, but, like, getting people to have that positive relationship with public lands and, like, so then creating the need and the desire to have more of those public lands be used for not just, like, say, logging in your county and the national forest. Like, right now, I don't know how it works in other states. I think it's similar. Like, the way that they allocate and delineate the number and amount and acreage of public lands you have is based off of hunting licenses. So, regardless of people, like, want to hunt, and if that's going to change overnight, one valuable tactic could be, whether you're going to use it or not, who cares, is to get some more hunting licenses for people in general, and that could help open up more space to be allocated into public lands. So, because right now, the Penokee Hills, the mineral rights are leased, but a lot of it is county land. It's bordering Iron and Ashland counties. And it pretty much, aside from, like, you know, you can ski and camp there, like, the counties use it for logging. And there needs to be, now with, like, less pressure on that sub-region of the Northwest Great Lakes bioregion area, there's more room to do, like, general forest defense, like, and get more involved in overseeing as grassroots people, like, logging activities they want to do, because that's another kind of mining. And that's what they do first anyway. Before anyone would come in there to potentially take the iron, they'd have to clear cut that thing. So there's just a lot of work to do. And one positive thing I was really pumped about, because a lot of that stand of trees throughout the 20-mile stretch, it changes a lot. Like, you know, you got balsam fir and white cedar and yellow birch and white pine and probably, like, more swamp white oaks creeping in there, it looks like. But there's a lot of sugar maple. So aside from just tapping it for sugar, which is, like, even from, like, a legal perspective, it's fine to do. When you tap a lot of those sugar maple trees, it creates, obviously, this little divot hole in the tree, and then this, like, spelting coloration up the bark, which makes it undesirable to a lot of loggers. So sometimes they'll just take it and try to reclaim it, but if it's a huge industrial project, that's like a deterrent. So as far as I'm concerned, people should fucking tap the shit out of that stretch of forest, and then I think it becomes instantly way less desirable to loggers. So there's a project in itself. Anyone could do that. So it makes me wish, like, in other parts of the country, I know, like, down south in the Carolinas and what have you, maybe not so much sugar maples, but they got sycamores. Like, if you have forests that are in danger of being logged, you can tap those too for sap with less sugar content. Like, we got sugar maples are, like, about 4% sugar. I think sycamores are, like, 1.5 or 2. Doesn't matter. Just cook it down longer. That's a project. Just simple stuff like that, aside from, like, these elaborate projects, even, like, clandestine things that people are thinking about, you know, when they're alone at night, who knows. Like, there's just like, not simple, but, like, community building activities like that not only provide a quote-unquote resource or food that you need, but also could protect, like, large swaths of land inadvertently. So I've been kind of jumping all over the place right now, but I think it's been valuable, I hope.
No.
What I'm getting at is with there not being this, like, massive impetus to, like, dig up and clear cut and mine that land right now, people can focus their energies more on those like kinds of community activities that inherently become forest defense too. I'm pretty pumped about that.
I love the idea that you can go in there and tap them, get a great resource for the community, but then also make it less valuable to come in and clear cut and just take those logs. One thing that I found really interesting that I didn't know you could really tap and get something useful out of sycamores.
Yeah. No, totally. It's like, I've got more of a butterscotchy flavor, but it's syrup.
Huh. I've never lived in a region where actually tapping a tree and getting something out of it like that has been worthwhile, but I've always like wanted to, but unfortunately it's not where I live. So
you have birch trees, they could do birch too. It's just a matter of between birch and sycamore, you need to cook the sap down more you get a hydrometer, let it float on top of the sugar as you're like cooking it down. It has to get to 66% sugar and then it won't mold. And you have the sugary syrup to use to just eat or preserve other foods with it. So yeah, depending on where you are, birch is good, sycamore, and then box elder is a type of maple. So this guy, okay, someone's asking me if I'm all right.
We definitely have box elder.
We have box elder. Yeah. I never even thought about that.
Rifle season just started around here, so a lot of people are out hunting at the moment. I'm on a road in the middle of the national forest. So all these hunters keep pulling over. They're like, hey, you know what? Which is great. They're being nice, but yeah, I'm being distracted.
So what's your origin? Like, what brought you to where you are now, and kind of what maybe radicalized you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think a lot of different things radicalized me, but I've always spent a lot of time outside, and my dad's mom played a big part in like my connections to seeing the forest for the trees type deal, like having a more intimate relationship with herbaceous plants and animals, and not knowing how to differentiate them does bring you closer to them. I think it's not just like, oh, it's a wood. It's like, oh, it's a woods with all these things to do all these things for themselves, and maybe for you sometimes, who knows, not from like an anthropocentric standpoint, but just the fact that they have so much to offer. But to go back more in my origin story, I guess I originally grew up in like low-income rural apartment housing in north central Wisconsin. So we're surrounded by woods, and we have lots of fresh water. And we had a dump in the back of a rural dump of this apartment complex I lived in, and there's a lot of people that live there, so a lot of us didn't have a lot of money. So we'd share resources, and a lot of us kids would run around like Lord of the Flies, just gallivanting through the woods and spending a lot of time in the outdoors. And then we'd also like go salvage stuff from the dump to live. And then just a lot of older growth, like eastern hemlocks and white pines in that area. So like we grew up seeing all these massive trees, not having a lot of money, and like sharing resources for a lot of like blue collar folks. And then we had, what's it called, whooping cranes that are endangered. They would nest in this field right across from like where we live. So we had a lot of interesting stuff going on in lifestyle of like the human community we were surrounded by, and also by the non-human community. And then slowly, because we were like on the outskirts of like Weston, Wausau, central Wisconsin, which is like more urban, more naturally more suburbs kind of started rolling in there. So we started seeing like just more logging of these areas that were a playground that we grew up around, and that we saw I think the regulations were different for how people could treat wetlands. Now there's a lot more rigmarole. There isn't. Our current governor, Scott Walker, is pretty insane. Has rolled back a lot of different regulations that normally protect the land base. I do, just to get off topic for a minute, like my origin story, I do want to finish that because it is important to like why I am the way I am, and I'd like to share that with people. But maybe we can relate to each other in a lot of ways. That'd be cool. I grew up hunting and fishing and doing those things, and I went through a period in my life when I got older and went to college and like traveled a lot, where I was pretty hardcore vegan for like 7 or 8 years. And then I started dumpstering more, just like in my adult years. Like, I've lived under the poverty line my whole adult life, and I know a lot of people that have. I'm not like, I don't think I'm special, quote unquote, that way. But developing a lifestyle of like foraging and hunting when I was younger, but like foraging urban and wild, so like in the forest and in dumpsters, just to like get by, and then recognizing that like our non-human comrades, well, that's what they are, they're comrades, and like they're just around doing what they want to do. And like humans have had such an encroaching attitude towards the rest of the planet for so long that it felt like we did not need to be bothered anymore, like whether it be like through development or through hunting. So that was kind of not just like thinking of them in a sentient way or like from a past life way, because like in my own spirituality, I do feel like I've been a non-human creature when I've been human, so that's important too. But like just seeing the impact humans have made me want to have that relationship with them and not hunter fish them for a while. And then moving to the harvest camp up here, that was a big turning point. And then also just being houseless a lot, not having a lot of quote unquote money and resources, being creative, and then becoming just more free. And I'm like, oh, I'll eat this meat if I find it in the dumpster, blah, blah, blah. But then moving out and like being in a wilderness area and not traveling from that space a lot, especially at the harvest camp, like until like more people started bringing donations, there just became this like physical bioregional necessity to start, for me, to start hunting and fishing again to survive. And then it just became part of like my life ethic and life story again, but like still like very grateful for those creatures, like taking realized ending to support my life and not taking more than I need and trying to like leave an offering and just feeling like I'm fully re-entering that circle of life, death, and like rebirth again. Not trying to over romanticize it or like make excuses about killing things, but like by nature, I do think we are animals, and sometimes animals kill things. You shouldn't do it in excess. You shouldn't do it if you don't need to do it. But I think it is justifiable and can be like reciprocal in some ways. But so that's where I'm at with that. These hunters I was just talking to were like, they were saying that they have fresh venison at their house and they have more than they need. And they don't even know me, but like they're asking me if I wanted to come by and get some. That's what interrupted the interview. And I said, yes, I will do that. Because, I mean, well, eating something that was once wild and free is better than like anything ever having been caged. And so I'm very anti-domestication and I try to be pretty hardline on that. So anyway, I think I'm excited to connect with these people in the bioregion and share that with them, because they're also, right now, like what I was talking about before, they're part of the land ethic. I'll talk to them about how they're hunting. If it wasn't cool, I'm not into it. But that's also like part of how I live my life up here and relate to people and like relates to the protection of public lands and how people use that land. And relating that back to like my origin story with like the whooping cranes like breeding across from like where I was living. I know this is like a weird segue. We'll deal with it. They started draining wetlands to build suburbs, and then the whooping cranes moved out, and they started felling these like massive trees that we like grew up around and saw other creatures living in and using in, and then they closed down the dump that we would, number one, we'd play in, we'd also salvage items from and share between our like low-income community, because these largely like white yuppie, seemingly more liberal, upper-class white folks moved in and like they didn't want to see the dump, and they wanted their houses to be just like this, and they wanted them right here, and they didn't care if it was a wetland. And I'm totally stereotyping in this moment, and it's probably not totally cool, so I apologize. That was just my personal life experience with that kind of development, that kind of destruction. Them like chopping down a habitat and naming it Sandhill Acres after like moving out all the whooping cranes and Sandhill cranes. So that radicalized me, and like when I was a kid, I can't get in trouble for it now. I'm just going to talk about it because it's something that I did. And we did like on our own accord, like being like a little Lord of the Flies kind of group of kids. We'd like run around and we'd go take down like land for sale signs or do things that were not effective but we didn't know. We'd bring like paint or a marker and change like the number on the sign. We're like, maybe this will keep it out from getting developed. We're like, no one will know. It's like it looked horrible. But I feel like I was doing that from a young age, just having it like in my face. Like we grew up in this like land of like, we're all friends and our community shares cool resources because we got the dump and we got the forest and we can see the whooping cranes over there. Like, this is a cool kind of habitat we got going. And then it just happened really quickly with like human invasion. And we just saw the effects of that. I saw the effects of that at a really young age, and it affected me at a really young age in our lifestyle. And then we kind of got gentrified or gentrifucked out of living there because they tried to make, they were low-income housing. I don't think they technically are anymore. They tried to upscale this place that we lived in because the neighbors didn't want to look at it. They didn't want to look at us. So just slowly getting pushed out of our community and our little habitat by people with more money. That was radicalizing, and I didn't realize how formative and radicalizing it was for like my general way of being until I got older. I'll take a break for a second. I feel like I've been talking just straight for a while. There's like more formative things that happened like in my later on in life, but I feel like specifically because of that stuff happening like when I was younger and like what kind of resources we had or didn't have, and like my exposure to the outdoors, and like, because that in itself is has had one of the largest effects on me. Like, we did it from tradition and also from having had a lot of money. Like, my family and a big chunk of my extended family, we would, in the winter, fish enough fish on the ice. We like Lower Bass Lake. Circa Day, I'm going to go there. For anyone from this region, I'll tell you a secret. In other places, and we fish enough fish for the whole year. So, like, that was my experience growing up, and, like, I didn't know that, like, everybody didn't do that. So, I thought, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I thought other people were, like, living this way. And a lot of people are, like, in the UP and Northwoods, like, people catch a lot of fish or catch a lot of deer for the whole year, and that's part of their existence for tradition's sake and also for lack of money's sake, and just access to the ability to do that. So anyway, aside from like,
oh, sorry.
Yeah. I'll stop. And I've been talking today for too long.
No, I was gonna say I really love like the idea that you were talking about, like the actions you were doing as a younger kid, even though they might not have been effective. I feel like as activists, so many activists, when they start out, if they don't do those smaller things, if they don't start out a little bit smaller, they try to get in over their head way too quickly, if that makes sense. And so I think like even though
completely.
Like they're very like they help form activists from a very young age, and so I love like hearing those type of stories.
Yeah, totally. We just did it as a band of crazy kids. We're like, this is bullshit. We didn't want to see any more houses popping up. We didn't like the neighbors that were moving in. We just couldn't relate to each other in lifestyle. And like, we were kids, we didn't want to. We were just done. We're like, the ducks, they're chopping down all the trees, the birds are gone. We're like, this just straight up sucks. We're like, let's go destroy all these land for sale signs. And they had to keep putting up signs like after a while. It was really funny to watch. And they never came and questioned the children of the neighborhood, so I also find that funny. So they didn't think like the 8 and 10-year-olds would be doing it, so nothing, no questions.
I wonder where all the signs are going.
Yeah. So, but that also created, I guess that creates a false sense of security at a young age, though, too. You think you can just get away with things because no one assumes. Just making assumptions of you. So there's that aspect of it too.
Yeah, that is true. You talked about the Harvest Camp being like very influential for you, like a turning point. What really happened at the Harvest Camp that made it so influential for you?
Well, just kind of like what I was getting at before, and so there was like more comrade or like at the risk of saying ally involvement and like donations. There was a lot of just everyday hunting and gathering going on to support people's like basic hierarchy of needs. Like someone would bring walleye that they like caught, or someone would get like a roadkill right away, and we'd be working on that just to like sustain our needs while we were holding that space and rewilding that space. And then just learning a lot of like different things from, that wall was more particularly, mainly the Lacuta and the Ojibwe there at the beginning. Learning stuff from them, like some of their stories and their cultural proceedings, and like how they use and build their intentions regarding like their everyday life. And then trying really hard to like be a good comrade and like not appropriate what was going on. That's just a life journey. That was an everyday lesson. I screwed up a lot. I did certain things a lot that I found out later were disrespectful, and I felt really bad. And it was a big learning experience because, you know, you want to be helpful, you want to be a good comrade, you want to do those things, but it's all like earned, and you can't like claim it. They have to accept you in that way and trust you to do certain things in that way. And I'm being really general and ambiguous because I don't.
Well, that kind of also leads into what you were saying about being an ally, where a lot of people just say, oh, yeah, we support you, but then they don't get in the streets with you. They don't put themselves on the line. And to really be an ally, you really need to put yourself, you know, in the same circumstances and the same risks of the people that you're going to be with.
Agreed. And then, like, it's really awesome that there was a spectrum and is a spectrum of resistance to industrial mining in this bioregion, but also like in the nature of there being more sparsely populated areas or just smaller towns, every person that's involved, it seems like, you know, when you're stripping even numbers wise, it's valuable, regardless of like where either of these people are on the spectrum of resistance. Is like, you know, how people like, I feel like tend to look at it sometimes. I know I did. And then that also created problems, just like maybe not exactly not being able to differentiate, like, oh, I'm on this part of the spectrum and this person's on that part of the spectrum. But just making compromises and excuses at certain turning points for like how you're going to react to a situation. And then later on, just like asking yourself, what the hell was I thinking? Like, this person's my comrade in like we're going to have a potluck kind of way, not in like this kind of way. And then like wondering why you're in trouble and like it's actually being really obvious as to why you're in trouble. Like you're not on the same page as this person. So community dynamics, once again, rural organizing. There needs to be just way better discussions about that between different radical communities because definitely not an epic fail, but there was moments of epic failure. I know it's like.
Would you mind going into a little bit about your experience of being incarcerated and talk about prisoner support, maybe?
Yeah, totally. Well, long story short, I know after being incarcerated in a small jail setting in a rural area for an extended period of time, that is and has become and will even become more of a bigger part of my life. So basically, for the majority of the time I was incarcerated, I think is how it adds up. I was the only female-bodied person in the Ryan County Jail for a while, and I spent between 5 and 6 months in solitary confinement for being a quote-unquote problem inmate. We'll get into that in a minute. But, yeah, there wasn't a lot of people there. Jails are not equipped, especially in this area. They're not equipped to handle a lot of people or handle long-term inmates. Infrastructurally and like mentally as far as the workers go. So I felt like me being there was a strain on the employees for better or for worse. And my first cellmate was an 18-year-old gal. It was really sad, like the reason that she had gotten in there, and she was like my only cellmate for a long period of time. And we didn't really leave the cell block too much. 6 months of my time was spent indoors. We were not allowed to go outside. And I wrote about this, but I do want to like reiterate it just because from a health standpoint alone, it's a problem that needs to be addressed. And before I even say that, I should start this off with, I have conflicting ideas between prison and jail, or I guess we can just call it all prison. Prison abolition and prison reform. Like ultimately I'm on the team to abolish prisons and the prison industrial complex, but I recognize a massive paradigm shift that doesn't happen overnight. And while we're like working towards that awesome and ultimate goal, like I'm okay with working in some reformist projects from knowing how it feels to be incarcerated and like wishing you could go outside or like wishing some of the rules were different just to make your day a little less insane or a little more comfortable. So I feel like there's a really unhealthy dogma sometimes that maybe is getting healthier in compensation, I hope. From having heard how the last ABC conference went in Colorado. It seems like some people are like, prison abolition and nothing else, and like don't want to work on reformist anything, and I feel like that's like not fair or productive. So yeah, from not being able to go outside, I know I'm pumped about helping others to make it reform, to make it required that jails offer outdoor time. Like my old cellmate developed a diagnosed thyroid disorder from lack of exposure to the sun. Like, that's insane. And so that's something I'm interested in seeing reformed. And also, I know this is an issue in prisons too. There's always an issue with healthcare, and I won't even say insurance because it shouldn't have to be a matter of insurance. It should just be access to healthcare. You have to, sometimes they won't test you for things, even when you feel like you have something or under the assumption that something is happening with you, like whether it be an STD or something like Hep C or AIDS. And sometimes it's really hard to get the medications that you want and the attention that you need with that, or diabetes. I think that's like a universal issue. So that's something I'm interested in being more helpful with. Desperation creates self-advocacy, I guess. So I learned to be a really aggressive self-advocate. Because even though the CEOs found me annoying, and I don't like the idea that they exist, and I thought it was, by definition, sociopathic. A lot of the things they were doing are like their inner desire to like have that kind of job, I think, lends itself to like certain dispositions in one's thinking that I don't feel like are healthy or would never relate to. Yeah, I know I was really annoying to them and trying to assert my rights and like meet my needs. And I wish I would have communicated better with my community about having a prisoner support committee prior to me going to jail, because I wasn't exactly sure what I would need, I guess, was the problem. So I wish I would have talked to other people that had been incarcerated for extended periods of time more in detail about their personal experiences that I could have prepared to help others help me, as well as, now I have a better idea of how I want to help people. And that's why I'm like, yeah, I have these conflicting ideas about abolition reform, because there's 2.2 million people still sitting in cages in the United States. And, if they're not getting out tomorrow, I think there's something I can dissolve my ego a little bit and spend some time trying to like, whatever they need, depending on who you're trying to connect with or are connecting with. Like, oh, you want me to write a letter to the warden about getting your recreational time back, or you want me to write a letter to the warden about why you haven't received your Hep C medication. Like, those are the kinds of things that maybe you end up spending more time than you thought doing, like being someone that supports a comrade behind bars or someone that you've recently become connected to behind bars. I guess regardless of like what you think you should be doing or like want to be doing, always, if you can, trying to connect with the people. I don't want to just call them inmates. I feel like it's disrespectful. The people that are incarcerated, about what their needs are before you just like jump to conclusions. Because I know a lot of people were trying to be helpful to me, and they would like make certain phone calls to the jail or the sheriff, and I wouldn't know it, about demanding certain things from me that I hadn't even asked, and then that would result in a lot of repression on my everyday existence. Like, they wouldn't let me, go to the library or use the phone or something like that. And some of those situations aren't even legal, but you can't even prove it in the right context. So something I had mixed feelings about that I wrote up for the last ABC conference here in September, I was talking about different COs having chest cameras in jail, even though I know that would be like more tax money, and people, criticize that for being supportive of an even more crazy surveillance state. But my opinion is, if you're already in one of those facilities, if you're already in a surveillance state, like you're already in jail, you're already in prison, and unless you got some really awesome idea for busting out, which I totally support you, whoever is trying to do that, and I hope you win. I hope you win. That'd be cool. But if you don't, you can get there's so many opportunities to be brutalized by these employees, these COs that aren't on camera, at least where I was, like where they interact with you, where they give you your food, or where they give you your commissary, or where if you have work release, you're going to your locker to change your shoes, where they can throw it against the wall, or technically not give you your food because it's not on camera. So that was where I felt personally unsafe. And if there's something I could contribute, at least to the female-bodied people's block, like where I was, if there's nothing else that could protect you, and like maybe in certain situations it would do the opposite. I don't know, obviously, but I thought it would be helpful to have the COs wearing chest cameras, because there's a couple of times where I would try to file a grievance and be like, hey, I didn't get fed yesterday, or this person wouldn't bring me a Band-Aid when I was bleeding out all over the floor, which that did happen, and I almost passed out, and I wasn't like responded to, and some of these things weren't on camera, and that was aside from like just trying to quote unquote finish your time or be productive in jail, like, oh, I should write a manifesto about this, that, or the other thing, like just trying to survive and be mentally well day to day. That's a task in itself. And when you feel like there are issues happening, they're hard to address because there's no way to prove that they're happening. That's huge. And then at some point, in conjunction with those issues, with my personal experience, it technically was like their inadvertent way of doing it, but they added all of my medical fees to the same account as my commissary. So I couldn't buy envelopes to write people. So it became this like by default communication monitored unit where like I couldn't really afford to call people, especially my mom here and there in emergencies, and I couldn't write people the way that I wanted to like tell them, hey, this is what's going on, or this is what I need. And then at first, they just would confiscate so much of my mail and not even tell me that they did it. And they started finally filling out these forms like 5 months into my sentence, saying like what I wouldn't get. But like, yeah, I mean, because the goal of imprisonment is temporary or permanent erasure, that's what they're trying to do. And any other way that they can do that, especially if they don't like you or resent the reasons that you are there. Like, I feel like in this case, I went to jail in a rural place in a pro-mining area. A lot of the workers seemingly were pretty resentful of my general nature and like the reasons that I was there or that they thought I was there. So, yeah, a lot of extra repression would occur in little ways that ended up not being so little, like confiscating my mail, like breaking down my communication, making it hard for me, even if I did write something, like a critique of, you know, a novel or like something happening in the world, or like something about prisoner support, like I wrote for the Anarchist Black Cross conference. I had a hard time getting that out of jail initially. So I'm going off on the seeming tangent, but all these things are related. Basically, maybe even if you want to check in with a comrade or someone you've come close to behind bars, they might not be able to write you back right away if they're in solitary confinement, the punishment tank, or the SHU, or other special housing unit. They may not get your letter, or they may not be able to respond if you write them. So I guess with prisoner support, if you're trying to do it from a distance, like there's so much you can do. Some of the most helpful people that I was involved with did not live close to me. But for the people that you're trying to put on your committee, prospective committee for a certain person behind bars or a comrade, aside from writing, trying to visit them as much as possible. If you can get someone to go once a week, that's stellar. That's probably the best way to know what's going on with them. Because then even if they can't see you, I guess if you call ahead and find out, you can find out that their privilege has been taken away. Like, oh, they don't get visitation this week. You can inquire as to why. Different policies are different in different states and counties. But you might get more info that way than like trying to await for a response on a letter that may never come because they've been deprived.
How has your support been since your release?
Good in the sense that I have places to stay. I have resources to sustain my basic hierarchy of needs, and I'm very grateful for that. Something that I feel bad about, well, like right out of jail, I think I did it too soon. Me and some comrades were like, all right, we're going to do this big prisoner support event, write letters to prisoners and talk about how we can be better supporters in our community, particularly of like the jails. Like we have Ashland, Bayfield, Iron County, and northern Wisconsin pretty close to each other. There's not like a close prison up here. And as an individual, I do think all prisoners are political. I think it's just a matter of degree. I know that there's some people with like more specific motivations that are like activisty, political, and environmentally protective in nature. I recognize that, and that they are there for like very different reasons than others. But like with the same token, nobody. I would hope not. Some people do, I guess, if they're doing civil disobedience. Most people don't want to be put in a cage. So, regardless of what they did or didn't do, if we have strong communities, we don't need these entities. So, I think they're all political. So anyway, we did an event surrounding that. And it kind of basically just turned into a Q&A for me and a friend that was there who had done time in federal prison for jumping the fence at the School of the Americas back in the early 2000s. And we talked about our incarcerated experiences, and it was really emotional. I felt like I wasn't totally ready to do that and hadn't processed things completely, maybe even not right now. And I had a hard time with it, but we did make some community headway. So anyway, people have been supporting me, and we've been trying to reach out to each other about how we can be better supporters of not just me, but other people pre and post and during incarceration here in the Northwoods. But something I did not anticipate, so it even took me a while to like connect with you to do this interview, is there's just a lot of random levels of trauma I feel like I'm going through. And I can't imagine like someone that has spent like years behind bars. Like I spent just a little under a year, and I feel like I had a really hard time transitioning back into the quote unquote relatively free world. It's just emotional, a lot going on, and I feel like my natural response to anxiety is to take on too many projects and like do too many things. So like, oh, like world's going to hell in a handbasket. I better do everything, and then you kind of just end up doing nothing or committing to nothing, but be committed to everything. So there's things I want to write, and there's things I want to do in the realms of helping others, and I feel like I haven't taken enough time to just process for myself and like understand how I can be more helpful to others, because I have some healing I need to do alone, but it just feels so selfish. So anyway, my support's been good from other folks, but I feel like I'm just having some emotional barriers and like getting other things done. Like we still have a fundraiser going for my legal fees, for example, and I'd like to write a post-release statement with more information pertaining to like how my incarcerated experience went and how we can help other people not be in that situation or help them that are currently incarcerated. And I feel like we're talking about that right now, so I feel a little justified, like, all right, I'm doing something. But I'm just having a hard time writing that, and I feel really guilty about it. I know I shouldn't.
Well, yeah,
so I want to. I'm just with the conditions of my probation. They're a little more lax now than they were when I was in jail, and that obviously makes sense because I'm not in jail anymore. But I think part of my transition that was hard, and it made it hard, and has made it hard, is making it hard for people to support me. In some ways, probably more emotionally with my release, is that I've been working a lot more than I'm used to. I'm used to like working, like chopping wood and doing things for myself to like exist during the day. But this whole after work, like a more stereotypical like 9-to-5 kind of lifestyle, and then like fulfill just different requirements during my probation, has made me more stressed out and less able to do different like activisty or resistance-y kinds of projects that I would normally like to spend more of my time doing. So it's just kind of a reminder. It's a good reality check that, sometimes you get frustrated about the world, like, wow, why aren't people doing anything? Why aren't we activated? That some people are just so caught up, coercively so, in like the slave nature of our capitalist society. They just basically they go to their 9-to-5 jobs and they come home, they watch their shows, go to bed, they'd have to do it all over again. They don't want to think about shit. They don't want to do shit. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they're burnt out and they feel hopeless sometimes. They feel completely detached from like any fathomable idea that life could be different. And I feel like I have not felt that despondent individually until recently when I started working more, and it just made me really sad. I was like, wow, I am not related to some people's feelings like that in a long time. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not just, like, working and, like, watching TV and going to bed. I really don't watch TV much. Like, but I do watch some stuff on the internet. And I'm like, I don't. Good. All right, I'm rambling. But anyway, yeah. My only job I had in jail relating to what I'm talking about, I promise. I had Huber work release the whole time I was incarcerated, but they turned down pretty much every job I asked for because I think it was just in their mind another way to punish me because they resented me so much for being a quote-unquote white, privileged, educated, in their mind, seemingly upper-class, female-bodied person, and I didn't deny it. I'm like, yeah, I'm all those things. I can't help it. I was born into certain situations, and I definitely took advantage of certain opportunities that were offered to me. I'm like, I did. Hit the nail on the head. They wanted me to be more confrontational about it, and I'm like, well, that happens. But hopefully I can use my privilege for good now. So with that resentment, they would turn down a lot of privileges or take a lot of them away or not let me work. And when they finally did, it was the last 3 weeks of my incarcerated experience at this wreath factory, of all things, just outside of Hurley, just outside of, like, one of the biggest pro-mining tiny towns in the Northwoods. And they let me work there. I'll never exactly know why, but I think they thought it'd be funny. I think they thought I was going to have a lot of issues with people there. I think they thought I might get into a physical altercation with people there. I just think they thought it would give me a hard time and or potentially get me more charges. Honestly, I can't prove that, obviously. I don't care to, but that's the vibe that I got. And just speaking about, like, my post-release experience and, like, turning points and relating to people and, like, what that means now is why I'm saying this. The first couple of days I talked to people there, and I was like, all right, I just need to, like, break this tension. I'm like, okay. I'm like, everyone knows why I'm here. Everyone knows I'm a Huber work release inmate right now, and they know I'm in jail. I'm like, if anyone has anything you want to say to me, just get it off your chest now because I can't handle it. And I just don't want it to be weird. And people kind of didn't say anything at first. And I didn't say that to, like, the whole factory of people at one time, but, like, smaller groups of folks. And it was surprisingly really positive. They're like, I've told these stories so many times to people now, but it's because it's affected me so much and affected, like, the way I want to connect with people. Anyway, like, one example of people reacting to that was like, we heard about you flipping out of the mountain and some people I know or me wanted to kick your ass for a couple of days, but then we're over it. Nobody cares anymore. I'm like, what? I'm like, really? Really? I'm like, that's great. I did not expect that response. Okay. And then that was kind of that. Because at this point, I started working there mid-October at the wreath making factory, There's no mine going on. People aren't mining. Nobody has a mining job. A lot of the folks in these smaller towns surrounding this iron belt, quote-unquote, ridge in that bioregion, they are kind of disillusioned with certain forms of industrial resource extraction now. They see that at least, if nothing else, that company in particular is going to come, wreck shop, not employ a lot of people, is going to be mainly automated. And the people that they did hire for some of the smaller projects they did with exploratory drilling were all from out of town for the most part. You know what I mean? So, like, it had nothing to do with this community. And then they love some other smaller projects of exploratory drilling and felling trees and leaving open wells up there in a shamble. So the folks that I was working with that are in the pearl mining region for the most part at this wreath factory, we as much as we could sorted out our differences, and I learned that a lot of them aren't super interested in that kind of industrial project there anymore anyway. So ironically, I had to go to jail and have all these weird experiences that seemed like a waste at the time, and a lot of them are, but some of them wasn't, to connect with this group of people that we were dying to connect with over the last how many years anyway, hoping that we could find some common ground and, like, be comrades in the struggle against this mine. So it was completely ironic and crazy. And some things we're not always going to agree on. That's just the way it is. And it was, like, predominantly, like, blue-collar, white folks that live under the poverty line. We're all working together at the seed factory. I just finished up less than a week ago. And I'm excited to call some of them my friends now, and I think we're going to keep hanging out and keep maybe organizing together in the future. So that's really positive.
Yeah.
But in the end, regardless of all these ironic things happening and this like horrible company coming through and trying to poison the water and the air and make a huge hole in the earth, it sounds cheesy, but it's true. Like, regardless of however people want to spin it, the forest brought me and these people together because we're making leaf from balsam fir, largely harvested from the Penokee region. And that's why we're all hanging out and working. So people were employed doing something that's not supposed to wreck the entire forest. And also fits the lifestyle of, like, people's integrated land ethic with the land up there and like temporary or seasonal employment lifestyle. Like even if there wasn't land, I would hire a bunch of people. It's not really like a culture of folks that live up here. Like a lot of people do seasonal work. A lot of people do crafty things or wild harvesty things to like make money. A lot of it. The majority of people in that particular region between like Hurley and Mellon, people look at a map. That's north central Wisconsin, 30 miles out from the lake, that don't involve typical 9 to 5. So, like, I think originally people were kind of pumped about the project in terms of, like, secondary employment. Like, if you think of the oil fields in Williston, North or South Dakota, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of people are getting jobs, maybe not so much in the oil fields, but, like, at the Walmarts and the McDonald's that pop up around there, getting paid, like, $17 an hour or something. Because it's a boom town. And that's what Hurley is. Like, the reason there's all these people, not even all, like a couple thousand people living there, and a lot of them, like, not having certain kinds of jobs, is they used to be shaft mining there back in the day, and then the mine shut up. They closed down, you know, and then people were unemployed. It's a fucking boom town. So it would be the same shit over again, and people are finally seeing that. And, yeah, we finally connected through my Uber-made work employment through the jail. Super. But I'm sorry. I just feel like I've been totally taking advantage of all these opportunities lately. When people ask me, I just like go on a diatribe for like an hour. That's probably not fun. I'm sorry. How you doing?
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's been great. How you mentioned that you're still raising funds for like your legal fees. How can people donate to your legal fees, and then also, you know, keep in contact with you and find out what you're doing and then helping out?
Awesome. That's a great question. So, yeah, the fundraiser that we're doing is broken down in several ways. When I go see my parents next week for Thanksgiving of all days, I'm not really pumped about the history surrounding that holiday, but I'm happy to see them, so we'll think of it that way. Yeah. We'll be see my parents today. We're going to, I just want people to know, that's when we're going to divvy up what is left of the fundraiser, because 40% goes to like my legal fees. Like some of that's going to be paying the supervision fees for probation, and some of that's going to lawyer fees for people helping me through all the legal processes and what have you. And then 40% goes to the Women Warrior Project, which is about just collective conscience and projects and gatherings and actions related to forest defense and ecological defense in this area. And then 10% is going to go to like Earth First, the production and distribution of their, I guess it's a magazine. I just call it their publication.
Journal.
And then 10% is there's this houseless shelter project in Ashland up here that is non-religious. And just with the nature of how the weather gets in the winter, that's important in itself. So we're going to divvy it up then. And if people are interested in that, if you go to PenokeeDefenders.wordpress.com, there is a link to that we pay. And I'm really overly grateful and appreciative for anyone that's taken interest in helping and like donating. So that's still happening. I mean, people, I think the idea, I need to check in with some people. I know it's like my quote unquote fundraiser, but there's other people involved with some of those projects. I think the idea was to like kind of shut it down here after Thanksgiving, and then people can like focus on other people and things, because I feel like I've gotten a lot of love, and I'm once again endlessly appreciative and grateful for it. So that is a website to help out with that. And basically, part of the organizing that's happening right now is trying to make Penokee Defenders website be more active and like updating like what's happening in the bioregion, what's happening with resource extraction, not just with the mine, but with like other projects. Like we were so preoccupied with the Penokee mine, you know, all these other sand mines are popping up around the state, but just kind of got swept under. I was about to say swept under the radar. That doesn't make sense. We're swept under the rug or off people's radar because we were too single issue. So anyway, there's a lot. I don't know if I've been swearing like a sailor doing this interview. I don't know if that makes a difference. I was about to swear.
Oh, you can totally swear. You can say whatever you want.
Okay. I was like, oh fuck, I've just been grabbing F-bombs and all kinds of shit, and I don't even know if that's gonna fly. Nope. So anyway, yep. So PenokeeDefenders.wordpress.com. That is still, it should have been a better website for information while I was incarcerated, and I think there was just a lack of communication between people, but that's going to be used more to, involve people in what's happening up here and just like updates with the bioregion in general, not just surrounding the potential Penokee mine. And people can donate to my legal fee / multi-tiered fundraiser there. So thanks for inquiring.
Awesome. Well, we end every episode saying fuck, shit, damn. Would you mind saying it for us this week?
Wait, fuck, shit, spam?
Yep.
What is... Oh, okay. Fuck, shit, spam.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
But now you didn't even tell me why I was doing that. I was like, I'll do it. Oh, great. Why?
We got to get our explicit rating.
Oh, okay. Great. But, yeah, that's awesome. I support you. But anyway, one cool thing that should be happening more, it's starting to happen more, is I'm excited for there to be better communication between just different bioregions in general, but between people with like a forest defense interest, so like there can be as much as there is possible and like sensible and do this in a safe way, like responses to forest or ecological destruction. So like people with certain skills and interests can like at least be in the loop with one another more. I feel like there's some websites that do as much of a good job as they can with disseminating that information. Obviously, you can go from this interview, like my interests are largely quote-unquote environmental issues, but I feel like there's a lot of intersectionality with that and like prisoner support and like supporting people in minority communities and what have you. Like, but I'm also, I'm not in the camp of like one big struggle for all. I don't think that always makes sense. Like there needs to be respectful division and separation. But anyway, being more connected between our bioregions, staying up on like what's happening with destruction and resistance and like proactive action. I think the Earth First websites do a really good job with that. I like to bump that. But there can always be more. We can always be doing better. I don't have a specific goal, plan, or idea to convey at the moment. I really wish I did. But I guess, if nothing else, working on the protection of public lands and like helping people help themselves become a more reciprocated part of that land ethic, I think is a great long-term paradigm shift. And one last group I'll drop that I think is pretty cool doing stuff is the Blue Mountains Biodiversity Project. So use all the tools in the toolbox when you can. And, I don't know. It's been real. I'm going to stop babbling. I really enjoyed this interview, and I hope it's helpful to some people.
This week you heard
Ghost Runner by Badlands Trio.
Right now you're listening to
Instrumental by A Burning Water.
iTunes. Hey, if you enjoyed this at all, consider going and rating and reviewing us. It doesn't cost you anything, but about a minute of your time. And if you listen to this much of the podcast, you can spare an extra minute.
Yeah. Instead of listening to the rest of the podcast, just go and rate and review us.
Yeah, fuck the rest. Who cares?
Yeah, we're just going to talk about social media and then probably end it.
Yeah, I mean, what with social media, what do we usually say? Something like, we post every day, blah, 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 be our friend?
Yeah, Just go to whichsidepodcast.com, click on the social tab, yada, yada, yada.
You know, be popular, be cool, be one of us.
Yeah.
You know, so do all that too.
Fuck shit down?
Yeah, that works for me. Fuck shit down.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Theme music by Commandantes. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always, fuck shit damn.